Hello everyone, this is the Comic Book Addict. I'm here to do a special video, one that I've planned to do for quite a while, one that I've gotten some requests for, but this is a look at some special comics in my collection. And I chose 10 to cover today, and I'm using my 75 Years of DC Comics monstrous book as my little table. Fun story about this, back when Barnes & Noble existed, no, Borders, back when Borders existed, I had a 50% off coupon. Got this $200 monster for $100. Anyway, so the first comic I want to spotlight is this Bullet Man comic, also known as Well-Known Comics. This is from 1942, Fawcett, but it was distributed as a giveaway through Best Made and Samuel Lowe Company. This is paper cover, paper insides. There's no glossiness to it, and it's all in red ink, as you can see, which can make it very painful to read, especially when it gets very text heavy like that. This one, well, I have read all but one of these 10 comics, so I have read this, but I picked this up at a short-lived antique mall, and I paid $2 or less for it. I can't remember. I just know it was no more than $2. And I looked all of these up in the current 48th edition of Overstreet, and this one ranges from $15 in good condition to $175 in near mint. So, very happy to stumble upon this 1942 giveaway. Next up is Fantastic Four Annual number 1, 1963, from Marvel, of course. This one's special because this is one of the first really old comics that I bought that were really special, and I got a good deal. This one I stumbled upon at a little flea market. It was one of those weekend kind of flea markets at some festival, and the guy had a bunch of other old comics I bought. This one he had behind his table, and when I bought the others, he brought this out to see if I would want it. He had it marked at $250. I said, "There's no way I can pay that." He said, "How much do you have?" I said, "Well, I only have $50 left on me." He thought about it for about 5 seconds and said, "Okay." So I got this for $50. This was back in, I think, 2006. For those of you who don't know, this YouTube channel was born out of the fact that I have a podcast, a comic book podcast I've had since 2006, called The Comic Book Addict. And this was the find that I talked about on the very first episode back in 2006. But really awesome to find that. Overstreet lists this from good $70 to near mint $1,950. So mine's not in great shape, but it's not in bad shape either. That's from 1963. Moving backwards in time, I have a duo of books from the 20s. That's right, some Platinum Age books. Anytime I see these for a decent price, I grab them up. That being said, I still only have 2 of them. This is Bringing Up Father, number 7, from 1923. This is, well, first of all, it's falling apart, but it's all here. Published by Couples in Leon. This guides from good $28 to very fine $285. Obviously, mine is not in good shape. But I got this for, I think, 14 bucks somewhere. And paired with that, and by the way, this is the only one of the 10 that I haven't read yet, but I have read a later issue, although not later by much. It's number 10 from 1926, in a little better shape. This one I paid 15 for, and it guides the same price range. But this one, obviously someone did take a crayon to at some point. Yeah, right there. But not too much of that. But it's really fun stuff. So that's number 10. So let's move back to something that you might recognize. Detective 359. Obviously, first appearance of Batgirl. Now this copy's not in great shape. You can see it's well worn, and the price I paid reflects that, although I still think I got a really good deal on it because I only paid $6.50 for this issue. This is from 1967, or it could have come out the end of 66 because it's a January book. But this guide's good 150 to near mint 4,000. Mine is obviously not worth that much. But I just picked this up at a great time for a good price, and I'm happy I have it. I'm one that I don't really care much about the condition as long as it's complete. I'm not really someone who goes after everything in mint or near mint or whatever. I'll take a beat up copy for a good price. So that's that. And I got that at a used bookstore that used to have lots of older comics for good prices. Store no longer there, or at least they no longer sell comics. Next up, this is the 6th comic I'm going to talk about from Nationwide Comics. No, not the insurance company. Captain Atom, and no, not that Captain Atom. Issue number 2, and you can tell this is a little bit smaller. If you compare it to a regular size comic, it's a bit smaller. This one is from 1951. And Nationwide was I guess, relatively short-lived company. Made these little comics. They also made a few other titles. You can see those. And they were priced at 5 cents. This I bought at the same place where I got the Detective 359, and I paid $30 for this. I paid a little more than I usually pay for a comic like this that's kind of unknown to me, just because it looked cool to me. And this guides from good $26 to near mint $3.50. But I thought it was a pretty fun little comic, and a different Captain Atom than the ones that people know. Next up, another duo. And these are really small. Again, for comparison's sake, and even compared to this one, it's really small. This is one of what came to be known as Mighty Midget comics from Fawcett. This is Ibis the Invincible, number 11. Number 11 is down there in the corner, although this actually predates the actual full-size Ibis number 1. But you can see it's printed in, well, kind of two tones. similar to the Bullet Man larger comic. And this is from 1942. I paid $20 or less for this. I did get a deal from the guy because I always came to him to buy comics, so he always gave me a deal. And it guides $16 in good condition to 200 near mint. And I also, at the same time, bought the next comic, also a Mighty Midget comic, as they're called, Mr. Scarlet and Pinky. And this is number 12. This is the only comic to feature these characters as the lead, as the title characters. They never had a comic of their own besides this. They appeared elsewhere in other series, but the only time they got their own spotlight series was this. And no, that's not crayon. That's actually the coloring job. This comic is terribly printed. I mean, really bad. But still, great to have it. And this one I paid $30 or less. Again, I got a deal. It guides from $10 good to $100 near mint. But yeah, so I bought these two at the same time. I got a deal. These earlier issues came with a box of other items like puzzles and toys and things, and they have the War Bond stamp. Later issues, which came as being sold on a display rack, they have nothing. So enjoy those too. The 9th comic I want to share with you is a really good one. I have read it. It's it's a lot of fun. Super DC Giant number S21, featuring Love, 1971. Look at that cover. That is an amazing piece of art. I love looking at that. DC's romance comics, I enjoy them greatly. I enjoy reading romance comics because I get a great laugh out of them. The artwork is usually exceptional. You get artwork from a lot of great artists that did superhero comics, and if you don't seek out these comics, you miss a lot of their great artwork. But anyway, this one I picked up at a county fair. When I was a kid, there was a county fair. This guy sold comics. He had a box on the floor of comics that were less than $1. This was in there. I picked it up because it looked pretty. And it turns out this comic, well, it guides good $27 to near mint $675. Why so much? Because Overstreet lists this as scarce. And Overstreet's definition of scarce is that only 20 to 100 copies are estimated to exist. Now, I find that incredibly unbelievable for a DC comic from 1971. But that's what Overstreet says, and hence the hefty near mint price. So I don't know, but I consider it to be a great addition to my collection, and I take great care of it. So the final comic I want to talk about is not special because it's really old or because it's really worth a lot or anything like that. This comic is special because this is the first comic book I ever owned. The actual copy of the first comic I ever owned, that someone bought for me, probably off the racks, before I could even read. Before I even went to school to learn to read, I remember sitting and looking at the pictures. So this was the first comic I ever owned, Amazing Spider-Man 202, from 1980, although it's March 1980, so who knows, maybe late 79. Only guides good $3 to near mint 24, but that doesn't matter because the personal worth of this is priceless. So there you go, 10 comics that are special to my collection, and hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.